Princess Kayla sat in her chamber, staring at the glass walls of her room. Outside, the city of Lyrath glimmered under the twin suns, its towers of silver and light stretching high into the sky. People moved below, elegant figures with luminous skin and delicate, flowing movements. To anyone else, it was a breathtaking sight, a city of perfection and grace. But for Kayla, it had become a reminder of what she could not do. She had not walked in over a decade. Years ago, an accident had left her legs paralyzed. Doctors had tried every treatment, and the best Lyrathian technology had failed. The finest medical devices and exoskeletons had only reminded her of her limits. The princess had grown used to sitting, watching the world move without her. She could read, she could think, she could study, but she could not feel the ground beneath her feet. Her attendants brought her meals, and her tutors lectured her on politics and history. The palace was beautiful, quiet, and safe, but it was also lonely. Kayla often wished she could just leave the palace, feel the grass under her feet, or even run if she wanted to, but it was impossible. That morning, a new visitor arrived at the palace. A human named Kale, sent from Earth as part of a diplomatic and technological exchange. Humans were rare in the galaxy, seen as curious but primitive by many of the Lyrathians. They did not have the elegance of the Lyrathians, nor the centuries of technological refinement. Yet they were clever, adaptable, and persistent in ways the Lyrathians often overlooked. Kayla first met Kale in the mechanical wing of the palace, where he had been assigned to repair ancient machinery that even the Lyrathian engineers had given up on. Kale was tall for a human, with dark hair that fell over his forehead and hands that were always busy, always moving. His eyes, a striking blue, seemed to look at everything with quiet curiosity. He carried tools that were strange to the Lyrathians, simple yet effective, and he moved with a confidence that came from knowing he could solve problems others could not. Kayla watched him from a distance at first. She had little patience for visitors, especially ones sent by foreign governments. They came and went, offering promises they could never keep. She expected Kale to be no different, but something about the human caught her attention. He did not seem intimidated by the palace or by her status. He did not treat her like a fragile figure who could not act on her own. The first meeting was cautious. Kayla was wheeled into the workshop on her chair, her glowing eyes narrowing as she studied him. Kale looked up from a disassembled machine, wiping his hands on a rag. "Princess Kayla, I'm told I'm to assist with the old systems," he said politely. "I'll do my best." Her tone was sharp, the kind that reminded people she was royalty and not to be trifled with. "I don't usually fail," Kale said with a small smile. It was not arrogance, it was certainty. Kayla found herself studying him more closely. There was no fear in his eyes, there was only focus. "You may begin," she said, her voice cool. Her attendants exchanged worried glances. The humans' methods were untested. Their technology was simple compared to Lyrathian precision. Perhaps she had expected someone flashy, someone with glowing tools and advanced devices. Instead, Kale worked quietly, taking the machinery apart, examining its joints, motors, and circuits. As the day passed, Kayla stayed to watch him. She noticed something others had not. Kale did not just follow instructions. He observed, adapted, and tried things in ways that seemed unusual but practical. He drew on his own experiences rather than relying solely on manuals or theory. Machines that had been broken for decades began to respond to his hands. Kayla felt something she had not felt in years, a flicker of hope. Perhaps humans were underestimated for a reason. Perhaps there was a reason their species had survived despite their apparent lack of elegance or refinement. By evening, Kale had finished most of the repairs. He wiped his hands on his rag and looked up at her. "It's stable now," he said simply. "But some of these systems are old and fragile. They'll need continued attention." "You are different from what I expected," she admitted finally. "I take that as a compliment," Kale said, shrugging lightly. Kayla's mind wandered. She thought of her paralysis, of the years she had spent trapped in her chair, of the frustration she felt every day. She had seen many doctors, engineers, and scientists, Lyrathians who were considered masters of their craft, but none had given her hope that her condition could change. A bold thought formed in her mind. She hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "I want to walk again." Kayla laughed softly, a sound mixed with disbelief and amusement. "You don't even know me. You don't know how long it's been. You don't know what has failed before. But I don't see why we should give up before we even start." "Then let's begin." Kayla observed quietly at first, then began to participate. She flexed her toes, then her ankles, following Kale's instructions. At first, the movements were minimal. Her legs trembled, her muscles weak from years of disuse. But Kale encouraged her patiently. He adjusted the device, changing angles, recalibrating sensors, trying different combinations until something finally worked. One morning, Kayla felt a strange tingling in her legs. She lifted one slightly, then the other. For a moment, she thought it was a dream. But the chair beneath her no longer fully supported her weight. She was holding herself up, tiny steps at a time. Kale's eyes lit up. "There, you see? You can do this." I'm moving," she exclaimed, struggling to lift her legs higher. The room seemed brighter, the walls less confining. For the first time in years, she felt the possibility of freedom. Her attendants rushed in, astonished at the sight. The human mechanic had done what decades of Lyrathian medicine could not. Kayla's movements were slow and unsteady, but they were real. She could feel the ground beneath her legs through the exoskeleton, feel herself rise and fall, balance and sway. "You are remarkable," Kayla said to Kale, her voice filled with admiration and gratitude. Kale shrugged modestly. "I just see things a little differently. Sometimes it takes a human touch." She looked at the city outside and imagined walking through its streets, feeling the sun on her face, the wind in her hair, the ground beneath her feet. For the first time in years, she believed it was possible. Kale knocked lightly and entered. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Stronger," she replied, smiling, "and a little more hopeful. I think this is just the beginning." She would show the galaxy that being a princess did not mean being helpless. She would show them what humans, and humans working with Lyrathians, could accomplish. Outside, the city of Lyrath sparkled, unaware that one of its most brilliant princesses was taking her first steps toward freedom, guided by a human mechanic who refused to see limits. Together, they would change everything. The next morning, sunlight poured through the palace windows, casting long golden beams across the workshop. Kayla arrived in her chair, her eyes bright with determination. She had spent the night imagining what it would feel like to take a step on her own, to move freely without assistance. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope she hadn't known she could feel. Kale was already at work, surrounded by tools, metal plates, wires, and small glowing devices. His hands moved with steady precision, adjusting small sensors, tightening screws, and testing circuits. Unlike the shiny, complex machines the Lyrathians had designed, Kale's equipment looked simple, almost crude. Yet in its simplicity there was genius. "Good morning, Princess," Kale said, glancing up with a smile. "Ready for your first real trial." Straps and supports extended from the main frame, designed to attach around Kayla's legs and hips. Sensors lined the inside, meant to respond to her muscle signals and balance shifts. "This is the start of your mobility device," Kale explained. "It's designed to help your legs move when your muscles cannot. It won't do the work for you entirely, but it will give you support, balance, and strength where you need it." The exoskeleton represented something entirely new, a chance at movement, a chance at freedom, but also risk. She could fail, stumble, or worse, fall, but something about Kale's confidence calmed her fears. "I trust you," she said, her voice steady. "Let's begin." Kayla allowed Kale to secure the device around her legs and hips, adjusting the straps and checking the sensors. He explained how the exoskeleton would respond to her muscle signals, guiding her legs to lift and shift. "Don't think of this as magic," Kale said. "It's your body working with the device. You need to focus, feel your muscles, and let them communicate with the exoskeleton." "I'll be right here." Kale knelt beside her, watching closely. "That's good," he encouraged. "Even the smallest movement counts. Keep trying." Finally, she felt it, a slight lift, a tiny shift in weight. Her right leg moved forward, not fully, not perfectly, but it moved. Her heart leapt. "You did it!" Kale exclaimed, his voice bright. "See, you can do this." She laughed, the sound full of surprise and joy. "This is incredible," she said. I'm moving." He adjusted the exoskeleton repeatedly, experimenting with new designs, testing new sensors, and combining human engineering principles with the advanced alien technology he found in the palace. Kayla began to notice changes not only in her legs but in herself. Her muscles, long unused, slowly strengthened. Her mind, once clouded with doubt and frustration, cleared. She began to think differently about movement, balance, and her own strength. Every small victory, lifting her leg a few inches, taking a half step forward, was a triumph that filled her with determination. The palace attendants watched with a mix of skepticism and awe. Many could not understand why Kayla allowed a human, a foreigner, to guide her. They whispered among themselves, questioning Kale's methods. "He is reckless," some said. "He is a human, what does he know?" She had begun to see the value in someone who thought differently, who refused to accept limits as permanent. One afternoon, as the suns dipped toward the horizon, Kayla took her first unsupported step. It was small, barely a foot forward, but it was real. She swayed, almost losing balance, but Kale steadied her gently. The room seemed to hold its breath. "You did it," Kale said softly. "You are walking." He taught her exercises to strengthen her legs and core, combining human techniques with alien principles of balance and neural stimulation. Kayla learned to trust her body again, to understand how her muscles could communicate with the exoskeleton, and eventually, how she could move without relying entirely on it. The palace began to notice the transformation. Kayla, once quiet and withdrawn, now moved with a grace and confidence that surprised everyone. She would practice walking in the hallways, testing new speeds and angles, sometimes racing Kale just for fun. She laughed more, spoke more, and began to take a more active role in the affairs of the court. One evening, Kayla and Kale worked late in the workshop, adjusting the exoskeleton for comfort and efficiency. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of machinery. Kayla leaned against the table, tired but exhilarated. "You know," she said, "I never thought I would feel like this again. I thought I would be stuck in a chair forever." "Most people would have given up," he said. "But you didn't. You kept trying even when it was hard, even when it seemed impossible. That's why you are walking now." We see possibilities where others see limits, and sometimes that's all it takes, a new perspective. The two of them continued their work day after day. Kayla practiced walking, running short distances, balancing on narrow platforms, and even attempting simple jumps with the exoskeleton's assistance. She fell many times, bruised and exhausted, but each failure brought new lessons. Kale would adjust the device, guide her movements, and encourage her to try again. Slowly, steadily, she improved. The bond between them grew stronger. Kayla began to trust Kale in ways she had never trusted anyone. He listened without judgment, encouraged without condescension, and challenged her without pressure. Their friendship became a partnership, built on mutual respect and the shared goal of overcoming what had seemed impossible. One morning, Kayla managed to walk across the entire workshop without support. Her steps were uneven, her movements cautious, but she was moving entirely on her own. Kale watched with pride, knowing that every adjustment, every lesson, every moment of patience had led to this. "You did it," he said, voice full of awe. "You're walking." She could walk, she could move, she could act, and she knew that with Kale by her side, she could face anything the galaxy threw at her. The sun set over Lyrath, painting the city in hues of gold and violet. Princess Kayla stood in the workshop, taking careful steps across the floor. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and adventures yet to come, but she no longer feared them. She had taken her first steps toward freedom, independence, and a life she could finally shape on her own. And as she walked, she realized something more. The galaxy might underestimate humans, but she had learned firsthand that courage, creativity, and persistence could change everything. Days turned into weeks, and Kayla's skills with the exoskeleton grew steadily. She could now walk across the palace halls without losing balance, step onto platforms, and even climb stairs with cautious determination. Her confidence increased with each success, and her laughter filled the previously quiet workshop. Kale watched her progress with pride, but he also knew the journey was far from over. "Your movement is improving faster than I expected," Kale said one morning as Kayla practiced walking along a narrow training track he had built. "But we need to challenge your limits if we want real strength. Turns, sudden stops, uneven surfaces. You'll learn to trust your body, not just the device." She fell back onto the mat with a soft thud. Kale immediately came to her side. "It's okay," he said gently. "Try again, slow and steady. You're learning with every step." Step by step, she navigated the obstacles, finishing the course with unsteady but successful movements. The workshop erupted with quiet cheers as attendants watched in amazement. "You're incredible," Kale said, helping her remove the exoskeleton after the session. "Few humans or aliens could have mastered this so quickly." "It's not me, it's the device, and it's you guiding me. I only follow." Kale introduced small weights to strengthen her legs, added resistance exercises, and even designed a virtual simulation that allowed her to practice walking on unpredictable terrain without risk of injury. The princess began to notice changes not just in her body, but in her spirit. She moved with more grace, more confidence. The palace halls, once intimidating because of her immobility, now felt like a playground. She could glide across rooms, step around delicate machinery, and even greet visitors while walking. Her attendants, once skeptical of her efforts, began to cheer for her achievements, inspired by her determination. Yet, despite her progress, Kayla faced moments of doubt. Sometimes her muscles would tremble uncontrollably, or the exoskeleton would misalign, causing her to stumble. The frustration threatened to overwhelm her. One evening, after several failed attempts at a new obstacle course, Kayla sat on the mat, breathing heavily. "I can't do it," she muttered, tears pricking her eyes. "Maybe I was never meant to walk again. I feel fragile." She nodded, determination settling in her chest. "Then we continue," she said. The next day, Kayla faced the obstacle course again. She stumbled, fell, and got back up more times than she could count. Each attempt was better than the last, her movements smoother, her confidence stronger. By the end of the session, she completed the course without falling once. "I did it," she whispered, hardly believing her own words. Kayla's smile was proud. "You did, and tomorrow we go further." She started designing minor adjustments to the device herself, suggesting changes that made it lighter, more responsive, and easier to control. Kale was impressed. "You're thinking like an engineer now," he said one afternoon. "Not just a user, you're improving the technology while improving yourself. And the human touch seems to work better than all the fancy Lyrathian tools." Visitors arrived to see her moving, and whispers spread about the princess who had not walked for years. Many were skeptical at first, dismissing the progress as a temporary novelty. But as days passed, they could not deny the evidence. Kayla walked, trained, and improved before their eyes. Her father, the king, observed her one afternoon as she practiced on the palace grounds. He had been hesitant about Kale, unsure if a human could contribute anything meaningful to Lyrathian technology or medicine. But watching Kayla move with confidence, climbing steps and balancing on platforms, he could no longer doubt her progress. "You've done well," the king said quietly as he approached her. "I underestimated both you and him." "Thank you, father. I could not have done it without Kale." The Lyrathians, known for their elegance and advanced technology, were reminded that innovation often comes from the unexpected. A human, underestimated and considered primitive, had achieved what their finest engineers had failed to do. And a princess, long considered fragile, had reclaimed her independence through courage and persistence. One afternoon, while training on a small platform near the palace gardens, Kayla paused and looked at the horizon. The twin suns glowed in the sky, casting long shadows across the city. For the first time, she imagined herself walking beyond the palace, exploring the streets, interacting with citizens, and moving freely in the world she had once only watched from a chair. Kale approached her, adjusting a small sensor on her exoskeleton. "You're ready for more," he said. "We can start training on uneven surfaces and longer distances. You'll learn to walk anywhere." "Then we start today." That evening, Kayla sat in her room, reflecting on her journey. She had walked for the first time in years, learned to trust her body, and discovered a new sense of independence. She realized that the device, while helpful, was not the true source of her progress. It was her courage, determination, and willingness to try again and again that had made the difference. Kale entered quietly, carrying a small tray of tools. "You've done more than I expected," he said softly. "You've grown stronger every day, and you've learned faster than anyone I've ever seen. We don't always follow the rules of the past. Sometimes we just try." She felt the strength in her legs, the support of the exoskeleton, and the power of her own determination. She knew the journey was far from over. Challenges still awaited, both in mastering her movement and in the world beyond the palace walls. But for the first time in years, Kayla felt unstoppable. She was walking, learning, and growing. And she knew that with Kale by her side, there was nothing she could not achieve. The galaxy might still doubt humans. It might still see them as fragile or primitive. But Kayla had seen the truth. Humans were clever, resilient, and capable of greatness. And together, a human and an alien princess were rewriting what was possible. Kayla had grown stronger with each passing day. Her legs, once fragile and unresponsive, now carried her with steady determination. She could climb stairs, navigate uneven surfaces, and even practice light running with the exoskeleton's help. Her confidence radiated, and the palace that had once felt like a prison now seemed like a place of endless possibility. Kale continued to guide her, adjusting the device for better support, teaching her how to respond to sudden shifts in balance, and helping her refine her movements. But beyond the physical training, he taught her strategy, observation, and improvisation. Kayla began to notice things she had never seen before. The way a machine moved, the subtle vibrations of the palace floors, the patterns in how sunlight fell across the gardens. It was during one of these observation sessions that the alarms sounded. The palace, a city of elegant towers and glowing streets, had sensors for almost everything, and Kayla had been allowed to walk freely only under careful supervision. Now red lights flashed across the walls and loud sirens filled the halls. "What is happening?" Kayla asked, her pulse quickening. Kale's expression was serious. "External intrusion, a rival faction from the neighboring system. They believe the Lyrathians are distracted, weakened. They intend to strike." Kayla realized that her years of immobility had made others underestimate her, and now the stakes were far higher than she had ever imagined. Kale took her hand gently. "You are ready, Kayla. You've trained, you've grown stronger, and now you can help protect your people. Are you ready to try?" She had spent months reclaiming her strength, learning to move, and discovering the power of persistence. Now it was time to put that power to use. The palace corridors were filled with Lyrathian guards and attendants, preparing defenses, checking equipment, and coordinating responses. Kayla, supported by Kale, moved through the halls, using her exoskeleton to navigate quickly and efficiently. She noticed weaknesses in the defensive layout that others had overlooked. Where the guards relied on rigid protocols, she saw alternative paths, faster routes, and ways to divert intruders without putting anyone at risk. Kale observed her closely, impressed. "You're thinking like a strategist," he said quietly, "not just a princess. You're seeing solutions that others would miss." The Lyrathian defenses activated, deploying shields, automated drones, and energy barriers. But the attackers were clever, testing the palace's responses, looking for weaknesses. Kayla and Kale moved to the command center, where holographic displays showed the intruders, positions, and movements. The room buzzed with energy as officials debated strategies. Kayla's eyes scanned the screens, noticing subtle patterns the others had missed. "They're focusing on the main gates," she said, "but the east flank is less defended. If we reinforce it, we can trap their advance and protect the civilians. I've learned to respond to unpredictability. Trust me on this." She moved swiftly through the halls, guiding people to safety, her exoskeleton allowing her to navigate stairs and narrow passages with ease. The first wave of attackers reached the east flank. Kayla watched from a vantage point as they encountered the defenses she had helped organize. Automated drones swooped down, energy barriers activated at precise moments, and reinforcements moved quickly to intercept. The attackers hesitated, confused by the unexpected coordination. Kayla's heart raced. Every step she took, every decision she made mattered. She moved closer to the front line, ready to assist where needed. The exoskeleton hummed softly, responding to her every motion, amplifying her strength and allowing her to act where others could not. Suddenly, a group of intruders broke through a side corridor, heading toward a residential wing of the palace. Kayla ran toward them, her steps precise and deliberate, weaving between obstacles and guiding civilians out of harm's way. She reached the intruders just in time to block their advance, using a combination of physical movement and clever positioning to delay them until reinforcements arrived. Kale followed closely, modifying defensive devices as they moved. He activated energy nets, redirected drones, and improvised barriers, all in perfect sync with Kayla's movements. Together, human ingenuity and Lyrathian technology created a coordinated defense that even the attackers could not predict. Hours passed in a blur of motion, strategy, and tension. Kayla's strength and confidence grew with every encounter. She moved through the palace like a force of nature, leading guards, protecting civilians, and coordinating defensive systems. Her training, patience, and determination had prepared her for this moment. At one point, she found herself cornered in a corridor with two intruders blocking her path. She paused, quickly analyzing the situation. The exoskeleton allowed her to push with more force than her muscles alone could generate, giving her leverage to maneuver the attackers. With a swift combination of movements, she deflected one intruder into a wall and guided the other into a trap Kale had set earlier. Breathing heavily, Kayla felt a rush of exhilaration. She was not just moving, she was leading, protecting, and making a difference. The power that had seemed impossible months ago was now hers to wield. By late evening, the attackers were repelled. The palace was damaged in places, but no civilians had been seriously harmed. The Lyrathians had defended their home successfully, and the leadership of the princess had been a key factor. The king approached Kayla as she returned from the battlefield, her exoskeleton humming softly. "You have done more than I could have imagined," he said. "You have not only walked again, but you have led our people in a way that inspires confidence, courage, and hope. That's what made the difference." That night, Kayla stood on the balcony, gazing at the city she had protected. The streets were quiet, the lights shimmering under the twin suns' glow. She could feel the strength in her legs, the support of her exoskeleton, and the power of her own determination. She realized that she had grown in ways she had never imagined, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Kale joined her, looking out over the city. "You've changed the way your people see you," he said. "And you've changed the way they see humans as well. Ingenuity, courage, and persistence are not limited by species. Humans have always done that. We survive by thinking differently, by refusing to give up. And now, you've shown the Lyrathians that those qualities can make a difference, even in their world." And she knew she was ready to face them, not just as a princess who could walk, but as a leader who could act, inspire, and change the future. The twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the city. Kayla took a careful step forward, then another, feeling the world beneath her feet in a way she had not for years. She was free, she was strong, and she was ready. The galaxy might underestimate humans. It might doubt the potential of those who were different, who did not follow tradition or convention. But Kayla had seen the truth firsthand. Humans were clever, resourceful, and courageous. And together, with a human and an alien princess standing side by side, anything was possible. Kayla smiled at Kale. "We've done something incredible," she said softly. Kale nodded. "And this is just the beginning." The morning after the attack, the palace of Lyrath was quiet, but the air buzzed with a mixture of relief and anticipation. Repairs were underway, and the citizens moved carefully through streets lined with the shimmering towers of the capital. Princess Kayla stood on the balcony of her chambers, gazing over the city she had helped defend. Her legs, strong and steady, carried her with confidence as she adjusted the exoskeleton one last time for support. She had come far since the day Kale had first arrived, and every step reminded her of the determination and courage that had brought her here. Kale approached her, his tools slung over his shoulder. He had spent the night making small improvements to the exoskeleton, refining sensors and strengthening supports. "Good morning," he said with a smile. "You look ready for the day. Not just to recover, but to prepare for the future. Your human touch, your perspective, it changed everything." Many council members had expected her to still rely on her chair, but Kayla's presence commanded respect. She moved with purpose, scanning the room and then addressed the council. "We faced a challenge yesterday," she said firmly, "and we survived because we adapted. We used our strengths in ways we had not before, but surviving is not enough. We must prepare, innovate, and ensure the safety of our people at all times. And we will do this together." She had become a symbol of resilience, courage, and ingenuity. Over the following weeks, Kayla and Kale worked tirelessly. She trained daily, perfecting her movements, testing new exoskeleton improvements, and learning how to act quickly in unexpected situations. Kale introduced adaptive devices for defense and communication, combining human problem-solving with Lyrathian technology. The palace became a hub of innovation, where humans and Lyrathians collaborated in ways previously unimagined. Kayla's influence extended beyond physical movement. She inspired her people to think differently, to innovate, and to face challenges with confidence. Citizens who had once doubted humans now saw their ingenuity firsthand. Kale, who had once been underestimated as an outsider, became a trusted advisor and innovator in his own right. Together, they demonstrated that collaboration across species could achieve extraordinary results. One afternoon, Kayla decided to test her abilities in a public demonstration. Citizens gathered in the central plaza, curious to see the princess who had walked for the first time in years. Kayla adjusted the exoskeleton and stepped forward, walking with grace and precision. She moved through an obstacle course designed by Kale, stepping over uneven surfaces, navigating narrow pathways, and demonstrating her agility. The crowd watched in awe. Whispers of admiration spread quickly. Parents pointed to their children, saying, "She did it, she walked, she leads, and she inspires." Children clapped and cheered, inspired by her determination. For Kayla, this moment was not about pride. It was about showing her people that limitations could be overcome through perseverance, ingenuity, and collaboration. Kale followed beside her, monitoring the exoskeleton and offering small adjustments. He noticed how far she had come, not just physically, but in confidence and strategic thinking. Kayla no longer relied solely on the device. She moved with a combination of natural strength, exoskeleton support, and sharp decision-making. She had become an example of human potential at its finest. After the demonstration, Kayla addressed the citizens. "We have faced challenges," she said. "We have stumbled, fallen, and struggled, but we have also risen. Each of us has the power to overcome, to adapt, and to grow stronger. Do not fear what you cannot do yet. Learn, try, and never give up. Together, we can achieve what seemed impossible." She realized that walking was only the beginning. Her true strength lay in courage, leadership, and the ability to inspire others to rise beyond their limitations. That evening, Kayla and Kale walked through the palace gardens, the twin suns casting long shadows over the landscape. The flowers glowed faintly in the alien light, and the soft hum of distant machinery filled the air. Kayla moved with ease, stepping over roots and stones, testing her balance without thought. Kale walked beside her, silently observing, letting her lead. "You've changed so much," he said softly. "Not just in movement, but in vision. You're shaping the future of your people." Humans may be underestimated in this galaxy, but ingenuity, courage, and persistence can overcome limits that seem absolute. You showed me that. And together, we've proven that collaboration across differences can achieve remarkable results. And she had not done it alone. The following weeks brought more changes to the city. Citizens trained with Kayla, learning new defensive techniques and adopting innovative tools designed by Kale. The palace integrated human engineering principles into its technology, improving efficiency, durability, and adaptability. Lyrathians who had once dismissed humans as primitive began to see them in a new light. Their ingenuity, resourcefulness, and adaptability had proved invaluable. Kayla took part in every aspect of these changes. She supervised construction projects, guided training exercises, and collaborated with engineers and scientists. Her movements were now fluid, her exoskeleton serving as an enhancement rather than a crutch. Each day, she walked further, ran longer, and moved with greater confidence. One evening, Kayla stood on the palace balcony, overlooking the city. The streets were filled with citizens moving freely, children playing, and families rebuilding their lives. The twin suns dipped low, casting golden light over the towers, gardens, and streets. Kayla felt a sense of completion, but also anticipation. Challenges would come again, new threats might arise, but she was ready. Kale joined her quietly. "You've accomplished so much," he said. "Your people see it, and so do I. You've turned weakness into strength and fear into inspiration. And it is not just me. It's all of us working together. Humans, Lyrathians, everyone willing to learn and adapt. We've shown that unity and ingenuity can change the impossible into reality. Not because of a single species, but because of what we can achieve when we combine strengths and refuse to give up. You proved what humans, and what any determined mind, can do. And you showed the Lyrathians that courage and creativity can overcome even the greatest challenges." She would continue to inspire, to innovate, and to lead. She would protect her people, challenge expectations, and explore possibilities beyond the stars. That night, Kayla and Kale walked together through the palace gardens, their steps synchronized, confident, and purposeful. The stars above twinkled faintly, and the city hummed with life and promise. Kayla realized that she was no longer defined by her past limitations. She had moved beyond them, embraced her potential, and created a path forward that others could follow. The galaxy might underestimate humans. It might doubt the potential of those who were different. But Kayla had seen the truth firsthand. Human courage, creativity, and persistence could achieve greatness. And together, with Kale by her side, she had rewritten what was possible, not just for herself, but for her people and for everyone who dared to dream beyond limits. As she walked through the gardens, Kayla felt a quiet sense of triumph. She was free, she was strong, and she was ready to face the future one step at a time. The twin suns set, and the city of Lyrath glowed under their fading light. Kayla took another step forward, then another, confident, determined, and unstoppable. She had walked through fear, doubt, and pain, and emerged victorious. The princess who could not walk for years was now a leader, a symbol, and a hero. And in that moment, Kayla knew one undeniable truth. With courage, ingenuity, and persistence, anything was possible.